Zombieland Double Tap. This is by far the most anticipated sequel of 2019. It was a movie that was in development hell for the last 10 years. I feel like I'd heard many times that they were going to do a Zombieland sequel. I think at one point it was called Balls to the Wall. This one went ahead with the term Double Tap, which is a reference to the first movie. They don't have it titled Zombieland 2, which is fine. I guess if they don't continue making a bunch of sequels, and based on the box office performance, I'm guessing that this is going to be the last one. Zombieland was a great movie. I loved it when it came out. It was one of my favorite movies at the time. I would still put it up there as, honestly, one of my favorites. Obviously not a top 10 or top 20 contender, but it definitely is up there. It's a movie I still give 5 stars for having a solid script, great characters, a good pace, a great look, a movie that is small but feels large at the same time, and at least does some different things in the zombie genre, while also having a few comedic moments here and there. It was never really the comedic moments that kept me in the movie, though. I think that the story was just well put together. It was told in under 90 minutes, which I think is incredible for any movie. And doing a sequel 10 years later, I thought could maybe lead to many possibilities. Anchorman also waited about 10 years to do their sequel, and it turned out great. There's not really many great comedy sequels, but seeing that this was also a zombie movie, maybe they were going to take some notes from zombie sequels like Dawn of the Dead. Well, with Zombieland Double Tap, we have the original cast joining together again, interacting with one another. 10 years, I guess, have gone by. It doesn't really explain it too well, the passage of time, but based on Abigail Breslin's age and what they do with her character, I think it's meant to be 10 years. And we follow the characters as they get into some shenanigans, they have some fun, giving the same kind of comedic timing we had in the first movie. The same kind of antics at times. They have a couple new set pieces. They end up at the White House. They end up at a Graceland parody, I guess. They probably couldn't get into the actual Elvis Presley home, so they decided to instead shoot at a museum, which works for the story, and I think it still leads to some pretty funny moments. We also run into new characters, including Albuquerque and Flagstaff, which are basically carbon copies of Tallahassee and Columbus, which is a simple joke, but I think it was funny enough. They were barely in the movie, and they did their joke. I think it worked. And it was also a good callback to the original movie, since those two characters, Tallahassee and Columbus, were originally meant to be named Albuquerque and Flagstaff. We also have some new love interests for both Tallahassee and for Little Rock. We have a new character show up named Madison, who is also a bit of a one-note joke. It's a character we've seen many times before. It's just the dumb blonde girl, and it's a tired trope. It's not a very good trope, but Zoe Deutsch is just having such a good time in the role that I kind of accept it. I think she actually makes that stereotype play out really well, and she is somewhat likable. I could see some people being really turned off by the character, but I think she at least delivered enough funny lines and was in the movie just enough where she didn't become an annoyance. But the movie doesn't try to be bigger than the first movie. It very much is like in the same kind of tone of the first movie. 10 years later, still following these characters somewhat. There's a part of me that kind of thinks it's weird where we follow the characters in this movie, given that it has been 10 years, because at times it doesn't feel like it has been. This movie did go probably through many rewrites, seeing that it's been 10 years. They even tried to make a TV show in that time, so 10 years into a zombie apocalypse, there's a couple funny jokes here and there about it. For instance, the cars are starting not to work as properly because I guess cars sitting around for 10 years, it doesn't necessarily mean they can start up super great unless you got a good mechanic around. They also have a couple of funny jokes about modern technology that exists today that wouldn't have existed had a zombie apocalypse happened in 2009 and all progress would have stopped. I would have liked more jokes like that, but they only really do 1 or 2 of them, and that's it. There's a couple good callbacks to the first movie, a couple different things that they open up for character changes and different storylines that could maybe continue one way or the other for the arcs. But to be honest, they don't really do much with a lot of the things they introduce. And there's a couple different contrivances here and there that just, for me, don't fit in too well. They do a lot of stuff from the first movie that, even in the first movie, it was getting exhausting. For instance, like, characters ditch the group at one point. And that happened about 3 times in the first movie, and now we're doing it in this movie as well, and it can start to feel a bit tiresome. There's not really a premise to this movie. The characters split up, and then they need to chase one another, but it doesn't really lead to that automatically. Some of the characters are kind of fine with how things are playing out until you find out, oh, this happened, so that's why we need to go after this character now. Okay. Oh, this character is going to this place, and this place does this thing, which will help with the climax, I guess. And the climax is one of the most forced, last-second, out-of-nowhere climaxes I've ever seen. It's almost like they forgot they were making a zombie movie, and they decided, oh, you know, we probably gotta have a finale where we kill a bunch of zombies. And the way they go about killing these zombies is, for lack of a better word, it's boring. It's just, you've seen it done before, and everything that they try to do different in this movie, like I said, it doesn't really lead to much, or they don't do much with it. They introduce new kinds of zombies, different types of zombies, and they don't really do much with each of them. It just seems like they're introducing things because it was, hey, this is a good idea to throw into the script, but they don't really develop it any further than that. And I was really disappointed because I think this movie could have been a little bigger, or they could have done a little different things. They could have introduced things from the first movie and brought them back into this movie to expand upon a little bit, or they could have done different things with this idea, because the idea of making a movie that's set 10 years into a zombie apocalypse that's been ongoing, I think it's very interesting, because we don't really get many movies like that. A lot of the zombie movies seem to pick up right when the zombie epidemic begins. But here's a movie where, hey, there's a culture surrounding this now. There's very few humans left, and the last surviving people are very good at killing zombies. And the zombies have mutated. I think there was a lot of possibility here, but it doesn't seem like they're doing much with it. It feels like it's the bare minimum because they instead just want to focus on character antics. The antics are fine, but like I said, the first movie's not even too comedic to me. It's not like one of the funniest movies ever, it's just all around a good movie. So trying to make this movie funnier doesn't always pan out. Then we get to that third act and all the humor kind of takes a side to the action. The action isn't very impressive. I guess it's a matter of doing different things with killing the zombies. You don't want to just see them shot in the head constantly. There's a great moment in the museum where they kind of have a chase scene. It's all done in one long take, and it's going through hallways, and you see different angles, and it's a lot of fun, and it keeps you invested, but that's really about it for the action. The opening sequence tries to do what the first movie did, except it's not as entertaining here because we're just watching the 4 main characters kill zombies in slow motion. Whereas the first movie, it was slow motion, it was zombies attacking, but it was in like these scenarios that you would typically see in a very glossy Hollywood rom-com. Things from other classic cinema. We have a scene that's like Scarface, one at a strip club, and then you have the father-son 3-legged race, and it all involves zombies. There's a part of it that's scary, but also, and familiar, but also funny about it. Whereas this movie, it's just a sequence of them killing zombies. I'm only bringing up the intro so much because they try to recreate it and it fails, but also it's one of the only moments in the movie where there is action. And for the rest of it, not really much. There's a whole scene where they have to go and steal an RV, and things don't really pan out the way they were hoping, and even that entire sequence ends up being pointless because something happens to the RV. I thought that part was funny. I love when movies can do that, when we have one specific aim, and then that aim gets completely destroyed because of one giant mistake that happens at the end. I like movies that can kind of throw you off in that way, and that also has an action sequence, but it's just not that great. This movie really only has one great action sequence, and then we get to the climax that feels out of nowhere, and all the zombies are getting killed in not an interesting fashion at all. And a lot of the character development that we're building towards ends up being avoided by the end. A lot of the characters kind of take back what they originally said. They kind of go back into their old ways. I guess a whole moral of the story is your home is where family is, I guess. They're trying to be a more tightly knit family, despite the fact that some of them maybe wanted to grow past that. They realize in the end that they just need each other. I guess. Maybe that's what they're building towards, but I just don't really feel it. Overall, I really liked the first 2 acts of this movie. I was loving seeing the characters again. I liked seeing Emma Stone playing something that's not a dramatic piece. I like her playing this type of character again. I liked seeing Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson in general. It's nice seeing Abigail Breslin again, even though she's not in the movie much. I liked these characters, and that's what makes the original Zombieland so great. And having a sequel, the only reason you should really do it is to see these characters again. Because otherwise you would just go and make a different zombie movie. But for the most part, it doesn't really develop the characters. It does the bare minimum, and it has a third act that feels entirely forced, pointless, and like it's missing a lot. Like, they really didn't plan on doing this kind of ending, and it felt like a mandate. Like, they had to end the movie this way. I think they really could have done so much different with this movie, and maybe I wouldn't have so many complaints about it had the movie come out 2 years after. What makes a comedy work usually are the actors. Why not just take those same actors and put them in a completely different scenario? I almost wonder if that would have been a better idea with this movie. Just take the 4 leads and put them in a different scenario. Not a zombie movie, but maybe like a spooky haunted house movie. I still think the movie deserves some credit because it's not all bad. It's got funny moments. I like the character of Madison. I like Flagstaff and Albuquerque. I like the original leads. But it does feel like they just didn't really have many ideas with this one. And it's surprising because it has been 10 years. You think there'd be 10 years of development there. But maybe the fact that they had to work on a TV show throughout it all, plus the director and the writers have been doing different things within these 10 years, it's disappointing. Because even at times, it feels like a cheaper movie than the first one. So what do I give Zombieland Double Tap? I'll be giving it 3 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I am going to see this movie again in the future. I liked seeing these characters again, and when I watch the first movie, I'm going to want to pop this one in and see the characters continue to do funny things and drive through the world of Zombieland. And I'll probably fast forward through Act 3. So, what did you think of Zombieland Double Tap? Do you think it was worth the wait? Do you think I'm being a little too mean towards the movie? Or do you think the idea has grown stale and they waited way too long to do a sequel? Thanks for watching the video, and we'll see you next time. Thanks to all my Patreon supporters. For only $7, you can get your own monthly movie review. Ask me to review anything I haven't already. There's also other perks like blogs, exclusive videos, and early access. You can also follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And thanks so much for watching this video.